Are you tired of the typical Christmas wreaths you see every holiday season? Coming up, I'll show you how to make one that's totally different. Hi there, welcome to the Upcycle Design Lab. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials to help you create more economically and ecologically. To make this project, the tools you're going to want to use are a hammer. You're going to need some tin cutters, a hot glue gun with some glue sticks, some E6000 glue. You're also going to want a couple of paper templates, whatever shapes you want to use. In this case, I'm using a star and a bow shape. You definitely want some gloves because you're working with kind of rusty metal and the pieces can be sharp. For the rusted metal, I have a totally separate tutorial on how you can make rusted metal sheets out of empty tin cans that I will put a link to in the description box, so you can check that out. But you're also going to want a couple of sheets of rusted metal. And then the last thing you need are some bed springs. So I know box springs are a little bit obscure and a lot of you may not actually have access to them, and some of them are different. I've seen all kind of different shapes. So I have a ton of these box springs, and so I've made some kits to make things a little bit easier and so that you'd have access to the actual box springs if you are interested. So I will, I'm selling these in my eBay store. I will link to that link as well in the description box. So let me open this up and show you what's in here. Like I said, there's an instruction sheet. The 7 springs that you'll need. 7 of these little coil springs. And some cut parts. In this case, they're the star shape and the bow. So you've got all the 6 flattened stars that you can use. And then the pieces to assemble the bow. So with this kit, you have everything you need to make a wreath like this one. But stay tuned because there are lots more ways to embellish this wreath, and I'm going to show you how to make it with or without the kit. Backing up here, as if you were doing this from scratch, I think I forgot to mention this tool and the tools that you need, but you also need, I think this is a nail pulling and cutter tool. You just need something that's really strong to cut through these springs, and the tin snips just aren't quite strong enough. So for the coil spring, you need 7 pieces that are 4 inches long. So I'm just using this tool to quickly cut 7 pieces to 4 inches. To cut out your metal shapes, you just need to take your template and your metal sheet, and you can use a clothespin to help you hold the piece in place if you need to. I usually don't worry about that. I just kind of hold the piece in place while I use my tin snips to cut out the shape, just like using a pair of scissors. The only thing about cutting the tin is that you do have to kind of come at it from different angles. It's not as easy to cut as fabric or paper, and it is pretty messy when some of this soot and rust are coming off of the piece. So you are going to want to do this in a place that you can clean up easily or that you don't care gets a little bit dirty. So once the piece is cut out, the edges are pretty rough and you can have some burrs on them, especially if you kind of overcut in any of these spots where a little piece could be sticking up. So you want to be sure to hammer this piece out again and flatten all of those rough edges and burrs that might be there. Once you've hammered it out, it should be lay a little flatter and it'll be very pliable, but you shouldn't have any really rough sharp spots. It still will be a little bit sharp, but it'll be much better than, and it should have all the burrs kind of knocked down on it. Once all of the tin pieces are cut out and hammered and flattened, you're ready to go ahead and assemble the wreath ring. So I'm going to start with two of my bed springs and one of the little coil springs. And what I want to do is I want to hold these two pieces together, matching up the knots. I'm calling them knots, I don't really know what they are. And then I'm going to put the coil, I'm going to hold that part in my hand here, and I'm going to put the coil around the other side where there is no knot. And to start, I just want to start in this kind of little corner notch here. And just twist the spring around these two pieces. Now you may, as it starts to turn, you may have to push that a little bit to get it around. So you're just going to coil this all the way on until it is coiled all the way around, and it should be kind of halfway around the spring. So you're just going to continue on. I'm going to get the next spring, match up the knots, and coil on the smaller coil spring. So I've got all 7 pieces hooked together now, and I'm just going to take the 2 ends and match the knots up again. Make sure that I'm holding it with these little corner pieces aligned as well. And I'm going to take my last assembly spring and coil it on. And there is your completed wreath shape. To assemble the bow, I'm using a combination of hot glue and E6000 glue. I like to use the two together because the hot glue gives me a quick bond and the E6000 glue gives me a more permanent, stable bond, just in case the wreath is in sunlight or exposed to heat, which might cause the hot glue to fail. Here I'm using the hot glue again to attach the decorative pieces to the wreath. And the easiest way to do this, once you've decided where you want the decorations, is to add the hot glue to the wreath and then place the tin piece on top. This way you can position all the decorations the way you want them. And once the glue has cooled, then carefully turn the wreath over and use the E6000 glue to bond all of the connections. I used quite a bit of E6000 glue because there isn't much contact between the pieces, and I wanted them to be secure. So this is the simplest version of wreaths, but there are a lot more things you can do to personalize your own, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But if you're enjoying today's video, please hit the like button, and if you know someone who you think might enjoy this content, please share it with them. Also, if you haven't already subscribed, click the subscribe button and the bell icon to select how you'd like to be notified when I upload new videos. Now we're getting into the fun part where you can really personalize your project. So there are 4 additional steps that you could take in any combination. You can mix and match them any way you like. But the first one is you can just add a finish to the metal pieces. I always go with the Mod Podge Glossy because I like the gloss finish. And it will seal the metal and it does darken the color a little bit as well. Another step you could add is adding some color. So I just have some acrylic craft paints here to add some color to some of the pieces. You can also add some glitter glue to the edges of the metal pieces to make them a little safer for handling if you think the edges are too sharp. And the last step that you can choose is to texturize some of the metal pieces. And I have a dapping and doming block here that I'm going to play with a little bit. But if you don't have anything fancy, I've also had some good luck adding some texture just using a flathead screwdriver and my hammer. So there's probably a lot of different ways you can add texture, but those are the two that I'm going to play around with today. You can certainly add the color in any way that you'd like, but I prefer to use just a wadded up paper towel and whatever color I'm using, and then I just sort of dab on the color so that I leave a little bit of the rusted finish coming through. And this way you can put on as much color or as little color as you like. You can paint the back if you want to. You don't really need to because it's not going to show. I like this technique because it's a really quick way to add some color, and you can also mix colors if you like to add a little bit more dimension. My paint is dry, and I've gone ahead and assembled my pieces using the E6000 glue and the hot glue. And now whenever I paint, I definitely like to use the Mod Podge because the paint and the glossy finish just go really well together, I think. If you've ever used Mod Podge, or if you've never used it, it's pretty simple to use. It goes on kind of milky, but it dries completely clear. And it changes the finish of the paint and just makes it look a lot, I don't know, I think it makes it look a lot nicer. My Mod Podge has gotten kind of thick, so I'm actually using a little bit of water here to spread it out thinner. And this will make the edges slightly duller if you get some on the edges. It's not going to make them totally smooth, but it does help a little bit with the sharpness of some of the edges. To make the safety edges, you can just use the hot glue to go around the edge of each of your metal pieces, and of course you can use it for decoration as well. I've had a lot of fun with this next technique because you can use a lot of different tools, including your hands, to shape the metal. So depending on what shape you're doing, what tool you're using, and whether pieces need to be glued together, you can decide whether to shape them before or after you hook them together. Generally, it's better to shape them before, but since this is the little center of the bow piece, I'm just shaping a little bit of a curve in it to give it a little bit more three-dimensional look. And you do need to use a little bit more glue when you do this, but anytime you've got kind of a concave shape. So again, I'm going to put the E6000 glue on my contact points, and then I'll probably fill the center with the hot glue just to hold it in place. Just want to make sure that the E6000 glue is getting contact somewhere. You always want to use the E6000 glue first because it takes quite a while to set up, so you don't have to worry about it drying. But of course your hot glue can cool down pretty quickly. I finished assembling my bow here, and one of the things I like to do with this piece is to go ahead and just try to give it a little more dimension using my fingers to shape the bow in sort of a more three-dimensional shape so it resembles a little bit more of a bow. Sometimes it's easier to do this with your gloves off. You can kind of feel the shape a little bit better, but do be careful because there are some pointed edges. But I just think that gives the bow a little bit more surface interest and just makes it a little funner to look at. And the next technique I'm going to do is to use my flathead screwdriver and my hammer. This is a little piece of my holly, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the screwdriver and hammer just to kind of etch in some of the vein lines that you would see in the leaf. For this technique, you want to start out tapping the hammer kind of gently because you can punch all the way through the metal. So you can work to a little harder pressure as you get a feel for the metal itself. You can see that this piece is kind of curling up as I'm working on tapping in the vein lines. And then once I'm done, I'm going back and just doing a little bit more folding along those lines using my hands to give the piece the shape that I want. For the little berry part of my hollies and berries, I'm going to use my dapping and doming block. I'm going to start with the smaller, I don't even know what these are called, dapping tool, and just gently kind of make a curve shape into this berry. So my maker friends, what are you creating for this week? Halloween or Christmas? Let me know in the comments. And be sure to check out my simplest Christmas upcycle projects, or if you're not quite ready for Christmas, there's some Halloween projects to check out as well. Be sure to check back soon for my latest upcycling experiment. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you back here soon in the lab.